Okay, we're gonna try to finish this up. So, we talk about. I want to get myself on track here. There's two things we've talked about that are required for jazz. It has to be based on the blues, and it has to have swing. And then the third thing that's really important to jazz and what makes jazz probably one of the best and worst musical styles is improvisation. Jazz of any kind should feature some form of improvisation. Whether it's just a tenor sax solo, in the middle of a big band arrangement, or whether it's extended soloing or even free jazz, which is like pretty much all improvisation. Okay, so like everybody I said, and I don't know, like if you watch these videos out of sequence and stuff, it's gonna be difficult to play everything together. But I prefer to play rock and roll to play jazz. The reasons for that are kind of weird. Like, I think the big thing I like better about rock and roll is that it hits a little harder. It's less cerebral and more emotional, I think I like the. See, like if I were to like collect all my heroes, like my two heroes in jazz are Bud Powell and John Coltrane. Bud Powell probably could have been one of the greatest musicians of all time, but he had either, who no one really knows, like either severe bipolar or schizophrenia, and he was in and out of the mental hospital. They were hitting him with fire hoses and shocking his ass, and he was a rough life. And Bud Powell, was I think probably from what I've read, like a real big head. And then when he got ill, I think anybody who's been ill, I've been ill in my life, you kind of reevaluate a little bit. And he was a lot nicer of a guy, but he was not able to play at the peak of his performance, which was in spite of everything, he did leave a legacy that's very interesting. But he certainly didn't get to the places where he could have gotten if he were around today and had good treatment and would stay off drugs and that kind of thing. John Coltrane, is a guy that he was addicted to heroin in the 50s. I think that's about right. He was a little bit younger than some of those guys. And got off the heroin and stayed off for a long time. But I don't know if you've ever known anyone who's used heroin intravenously, like shot in, actually injected it, not like eaten a lot of Oxycontin or snorted it or smoked it, but actually used it intravenously. It does terrible damage to your body. And John Coltrane lived for about 20 years, and then his body just shut down. I can't remember what it was exactly that killed him, liver failure or something. But in those 20 years, John Coltrane went about as deep into jazz music as he could possibly go, and in many ways, very deep into uncharted territory in music in general. Love Supreme, I think, is a stunning example of John Coltrane really, breaking all the rules and making something that still makes sense. He is an unbelievable mind. I think some of the things about John Coltrane that aren't so great, he's not a very athletic player. He's very ponderous. So it's you don't expect, there's not a lot of dexterity, and it goes along with it is that his music is very, what you would say, heavy sounding. I think someone like Mozart, another one of my heroes. Mozart's a hero of mine as well. Mozart is very light in the sense of it's very dexterous, and that's why it's such a shame people listen to Mozart's Requiem, which he never finished and would have been a million times better if he had. The way it's made, the way the Requiem has been made, remade by other people, because they just look at the sketch and fill everything in. The way it's been remade is like so heavy and just it's just like guilt, and despair, and I think Mozart experienced those emotions, but he would have been much more agile in like expressing them, much more witty in saying it. But Coltrane wasn't a wit. He was, in fact, there's some funny stories about Coltrane. They used to boo him off stage. I think someone broke one of his instruments once. He was a tenor sax player. He was an old R&B sax player, or not old. He was a young R&B sax player, and he heard Miles Davis play, and immediately it was like something went off in his head. He was going to play jazz, and everybody said, "John Coltrane, you are the suckiest tenor sax player in the entire world." And even when he had gotten to the point where he was like at the peak of his powers, people would just totally just piss all over his reputation. He was probably one of the most hated men in jazz ever. I mean, like Miles had a reputation for being an asshole, but people also were like in adulation of him. But John was actually a really nice guy. John Coltrane's actually, by the time he was a little older, he was a very nice guy. And he had taken a lot of shit. And he's an amazing, amazing guy. But anyway, so that's kind of the problem with John Coltrane's music, is it's very heavy, and it's not very athletic. And I think what's so amazing about Mozart is that if you listen to like Mozart's late works, he started getting into those heavy feelings, but he was very athletic in expressing them. Not always played very athletically. I mean, sometimes people playing like John Coltrane was playing it. But anyway, it's it's hard to say. I mean, like I think you can look at Beethoven. Like Beethoven is not athletic music. It's very heavy. It's very ponderous. Very dark. I mean, in my mind, and that's and Coltrane was kind of like the Beethoven of jazz. And if you look at someone like Charlie Parker, who was just this very athletic player, very bright. He had a very bright sound to his saxophone sound. Who would you compare him to in classical music? Something like, I mean, not Mozart. I wouldn't compare Charlie Parker to Mozart. I mean, he was certainly in some ways on the same level musically, but I don't know. I have to think about that a little bit. But and we make a long story short, there are a lot of different ways of looking at jazz music. I've got a minute left. A lot of different ways of looking at jazz music. I mean, like I said, I studied with Jerry Coker, who was probably most influenced by Claire Fischer. He talked about Claire Fischer a lot when he taught. And Claire Fischer was a Latino pianist. I forget if he was from Mexico or South America. I can't remember. Oh, I'm out of the view. Just a second. Okay, I'm wasting time. But to make a long story short, then I studied with a guy that played with the Mel Torme Jazz Orchestra. And, I actually played with Mel Torme. I think he's passed away now, but he actually played with Mel Torme, which is, big shit. Like, put that on your resume, trust me. And he was, like white jazz. I mean, that's the thing that's like really hard for me. It's like I don't like Mel Torme, but that guy can play the fuck out of a piano. So like I studied with him, and I put up with his, slapping my hands and all that. And I will make a